Hello my friends, welcome back to another video where we speak about the absolute worst things possible on the internet, and today it's really no different. In fact, this is a case which is naturally very, disappointing to a lot of people, to a point of where it's shocking, it's just in general sad, to be honest with you, because the topic of what we're talking about today involves somebody that a lot of people have looked up to, but I actually have to start this video in a bit of a different manner to all of my other previous videos. Now, I've spoken about these types of topics previously and I feel like I've handled them pretty well, and usually in those videos, I would give an absolute conclusive opinion on everything going on in those situations. But in today's video, it's a little bit different. I cannot give you a conclusive opinion on everything in this situation, mainly because of the lack of facts. And that is a bit of a strange thing, because naturally I will get a lot of people saying, well, why are you making this video? And typically, my friends, I would absolutely agree with you. I would say, yes, in a situation where there is a complete lack of facts, you know, usually you wouldn't say anything until at least more information comes out, somebody responds, somebody just in general puts out some extra information here. But the issue is, well, the internet, you know, being the internet, has pretty much come to a conclusive opinion on absolutely everything in this situation. And in fact, this situation has gone absolutely viral. And yes, we're obviously speaking about the BoyInABand situation. If you go onto TikTok and if you go onto Twitter right now, there are posts out there with hundreds of thousands of likes, millions of views, YouTube videos, and I'm not critiquing these videos because they are actually really good videos with hundreds of thousands of views. The point I'm trying to say is that I don't necessarily disagree with every single post out there, but the point is, despite the lack of facts in this situation, everybody seems to know about this situation. And for the most part, most people have actually come to their conclusive opinion that the person in subject today, I don't know if that actually makes any English sense, but the person we're speaking about today is indeed a criminal. But this situation is definitely different to a lot of other situations out there. Rather than one outright allegation, there are multiple different allegations which actually allegedly span to more than 10 different possible victims, or even more than that, according to certain posts on the internet. And whilst I do actually believe some of these allegations to be true, and whilst there actually is factual evidence of a lot of things that have been alleged to have happened in the past, there is also some things in these allegations where there just in general is such a lack of evidence, and I don't mean evidence of somebody's got out a camera and recorded something. I just mean there isn't even a name attached to certain allegations. There is literally nothing there which makes me think that these things can have happened. And I'm not victim blaming. I know it may seem like that, but in today's video, I think to actually do victims justice in this situation, we need to go through the facts, the contradictions, the things which just in general are very confusing, because this entire situation is like a spider web, and we've got to go through the entire web and kind of piece everything together in this puzzle, because honestly, it's just so insane what's going on here. And the internet, whilst I do agree with a lot of the opinions, I feel like the main problem is that a lot of people on the internet don't actually know what they're giving their opinion on. I think they've seen one thing and they've ultimately just said, that's the thing, and I'm going to go with it. Which, with some things in this situation, I can completely agree on. At the same time, I do think we wouldn't be doing any victims out there any due diligence or any fairness by not going over the false facts, because a lot of situations have happened where there has been an actual terrible thing, but with that thing happening, a lot of other people come out and start spreading lies and misinformation, and it kind of allows things to cloud and become blurred, and that actually stops real victim stories from being told. And that is why I believe it's important to speak about not just the facts, but also the possible mistruths. So allow me to introduce you once again to the BoyInABand allegations.
I was never taught what laws there are. I was never taught what laws there are. Let me repeat.
Dave, don't worry, mate. You don't need to repeat yourself. We know. Now, okay, I do have to say, yes, that indeed is technically, and I think legally, without me getting sued for slander, a joke. Can you may think, Fraser, you shouldn't be making jokes in these situations, and you're probably actually right, but honestly, I want to present this information to you in a way where you do not throw your guts up, but naturally I am going to put a little warning and say, trigger warning for pretty much every different form of abuse. And I'm not saying all of those stories of abuse are completely accurate, but ultimately, we are going to be dealing with literally every possible, well, I believe nearly every possible form of abuse in terms of discussion. Dave from BoyInABand is a massive content creator who over the last decade has become absolutely beloved by his audience, by just in general, people around the world. This guy's been known for so many different things throughout the YouTube space, and with Dave, he has quite a unique connection to his audience. A regular YouTube audience, they'll click on the video and that'll be that. They'll have a nice old laugh and that's their day done. But with Dave, it's a bit different. His audience have always had a little bit of a close connection, a personal bond, something which has made it a bit different to a regular YouTube audience. And at this point, I'm not saying anything sinister. It's just Dave has been really known as this guy who helps, honestly. He's been known as the dude who provides support for his audience, which for over the years has been something that the guy has been absolutely celebrated for. But fellas, just because somebody posts something on their YouTube channel, it doesn't mean that you know them. And I know some of you may say, oh, not my favourite influencer. No, fellas, I have seen some of your favourite influencers' voting records, and I'm just going to say, it's not looking good, Brev. But yes, that leads us into the main things today. In the last couple of months, BoyInABand has been at the forefront of multiple serious allegations, where it's stated that he is allegedly emotionally, financially, physically, and even sexually abused many young girls who are allegedly fans. Now, these allegations have been around on the internet for about 2 months now. They originally, for the first month, were circulating around Dave, BoyInABand's community, but then in the last month, they've gone absolutely fucking viral. Like, these posts are everywhere. And pretty much, as I said, people now see BoyInABand as a complete and utter criminal, which, given some of the things in this, I can completely understand, because honestly, there are so many different allegations, but one of them does have an outright piece of evidence where I'm just saying, I don't think it's defensible in any way, shape, or form. But I do also think that BoyInABand does deserve a chance to at least provide some context and defend himself. Now, again, I'm not saying that these stories are false, but I am saying that if BoyInABand could come out and actually prove everything to be absolutely false, that would be great, because naturally I don't want anybody to be a victim of abuse, and if it did turn out this entire thing was complete bollocks, that would be the ideal scenario. So what I did was actually DM BoyInABand and pretty much ask for some clarification on this situation, because, you know, I didn't want to put out a video where I could be told by BoyInABand himself that there are these factual things soon coming out where he could disprove everything. So I thought it would be best to DM the guy, but as you can probably imagine, I have had absolutely no response, and I even DM'd some unnamed mutuals that I have with BoyInABand who are friends with the guy, just asking, is he going to come out of a response? Is there more to the story? And as you can imagine, I got absolutely no response, so that's why I'm making this video today, because as I said, everybody already knows about this, and I do think the issue is that a lot of people that have given their opinions do not know the facts from start to finish. So let's start off with the timeline. Now, as I said, these allegations have been floating around on the internet for the last 2 months now. These were something I actually saw quite early on into the allegations. I received a DM of somebody being like, hey, Fraser, this guy is a complete stinking nonce, and you know what? I receive a lot of DMs about that, to be honest with you. Usually it's probably somebody messing around, somebody doing a little bit of a trolley-wolley, but in this situation, no. I saw these allegations and I thought, yes, these are quite serious, but weirdly enough, you know, nothing was coming from them. Then randomly on TikTok, it blew up. Somebody got the story trending and everybody started speaking about it. But the fact is despite it's now, at time of recording, the 9th of October, these allegations began on the 27th of August from a Reddit account called Astakas, which was created in May of 2022. And when you actually go and look at their Reddit history, they made a few posts here and there of where they were making non-relevant posts, just like any other common Reddit user. And, you know, if you do have a Reddit account, I mean, you're probably going to face some... No, I can't say that. Just Reddit, not my favorite website, but alas, yeah, there were just regular posts, but then randomly on one summer's eve of the 27th of August 2022, they responded to a 7-month-old Reddit post with the very first BoyInABand allegations. When I say allegations, these are actually not allegations. This is more of a buried truth. This is something which has been either hidden or forgotten for the last few years. I'd say probably more likely to be hidden, because I don't don't believe that the evidence which is publicly available is now publicly available on the websites they were originally on, and they are now accessible via internet archives, but this is a dirty little secret which has been hidden over the years. As the guest says, here are the screenshots of a 17-year-old he dated when he was 23, and she admits to it at the time of dating him, and it's all on a blog that he designed and was under BoyInABand's name. And yes, that is bad, but the problem is this begins quite a theme of not misinformation, but information which weirdly hasn't been presented as the original allegation, because throughout this entire thing, I've noticed that there are things which actually back up a lot of the allegations, but the problem is they weren't linked, they weren't originally shown, or they were buried at the bottom of some random massive long post, which not everybody would get to read, because, you know, we all have ADHD riddled brains, and not all of us can, you know, last longer than 10 seconds of reading a post. But yeah, the problem is that this gets even worse when you find out that BoyInABand himself has actually also confirmed it on his own blog. And despite all the research that I did, I genuinely didn't know this until I only recently watched another content creator, Jimmy Robbins' video about the BoyInABand situation, which I do have to say is a very, very good video and probably way more concise and shorter than this. So if you do want a concise, viewing of this situation, I do recommend that video. It will be linked below. But yes, Jimmy Robbins actually discovered this.
On Dave's first website, I used the Wayback Machine to find his second website, where I found a blog post he made in 2011 where he says he was dating a 17-year-old since she was 16. And at that time, yes, he was 23, so he dated a 16-year-old when he was 22, and here is him admitting that.
So yes, it naturally does get worse when you see that BoyInABand himself has confirmed this, but I know I will have a lot of weirdos in my comment section saying things like, well, 17 and 23 isn't that bad. Honestly, fellas, if you're thinking that, I'm just going to say maybe close off this video, because I'm going to thoroughly disappoint you. Not only do I think 17 and 23 is an inappropriate age gap, because I'm not going to lie, guys, I know me at 23 and I know me at 17 years old. These guys are completely fucking different human beings. Like, honestly, 17-year-old me was a fucking gremlin. And honestly, 23-year-old wasn't necessarily a gremlin. I'd more evolved into Gollum, but I don't think Gollum should be diddling with gremlins, you know? It's just something that you don't really want to see in the modern game, and I think this is another case of that. But alas, it does get worse when you actually realise that the context here isn't just a 17 and 23-year-old inappropriate age gap, it's also the fact that BoyInABand met this girl when she was 15 and he was, I believe, 21, and they started dating when she was 16. On a post on David's blog, he made something which to me is honestly the most incriminating piece of evidence in this situation, where he says, David's got a girlfriend. I'm now with a girl called Rachel. And then he then states that he actually met this Rachel 2 years before this post, and then she started messaging him, and, you know, basically, I guess they started hitting it off. And the reason it's bad is because that post from David was made in 2009, and then you look at Rachel's posts in 2010, which does confirm that she is 17 years old, and it doesn't take a math wizard to realize that, Rachel could have possibly been 15 or even 14 years old when they met, and Dave would have been in his early 20s, which I don't really know how it would work in Dave's situation here with grooming laws, but either way, it's not necessarily a crime in the UK for a 16-year-old and a 21-year-old to date. But the thing is, in the UK, if you do that, you're pretty much going to get fucking ousted from society. Take it from me. When somebody was in like senior school or high school, whatever you want to call it, when there was a year 9 dating a year 11, you would be perceived as, my friends, a nonce. Now, it's not a crime technically, but as the British say, you would be, in the British eyes and not in a criminal way, you would just be deemed, again, a nonce. Now, this situation is really no different to the James Charles situation, and I will continue to fall on that because pretty much everybody on the internet has turned on James Charles and has the opinion that he is a terrible person. Even if he isn't in jail or not, people believe he's terrible, and rightly so. I myself am in that category, but James is called terrible because he, in his early 20s, had an inappropriate interaction with a fan, or just somebody who was a young person, pretty much. I say a fan, I mean a young fan. And that obviously is a wrong thing. That obviously is a disgusting thing to have happened. So why is it any different in this situation? Is it because you have a bias? Is it because you like this content creator? Is it because the content creator seemed to be less annoying than James Charles? I don't think that they are accurate and necessarily viable reasons in order to deflect away from the fact that this guy has done exactly what James Charles has done. People will also say it happened years ago. While BoyInABand was massive in 2016 and 2017, that was only 5 years after his relationship with Rachel, who, bearing in mind, after like 5 years, I still don't think would have been the age BoyInABand was when they started dating. So yeah, it's a little bit fucked that anybody would actually see this as any different to the James Charles situation, regardless of everything else we're going to go through today, and regardless of all of the different contradictions and missing pieces of information. And I don't necessarily think it should be excused because it happened years ago, and honestly, 10 years really isn't that long ago, but also a grown man dating such a young girl could really do some damage on that young girl. People may say I'm reaching there, but honestly, when you do look into the further allegations and what has been alleged in this situation, whilst, as I said, there isn't much factual evidence, I think the fact that a 22-year-old man is willing to date a teenager is, a bit of a representative of their character, and again, completely indefensible. And as I was saying, I think that teenager could easily have had their brain or mind, whatever you want to call it, damaged just because of how inappropriate that age gap is, and also that power dynamic. And you may say, what do you mean by power dynamic? Because, back in 2011 and 2010, Dave wasn't as famous as he is now. That's true, but being a big famous YouTuber isn't the only power dynamic. Just having such a large age gap, Dave being somebody in his 20s who can more likely financially provide for himself, that's a power dynamic in itself. Just being a 22-year-old in comparison to a 16-year-old who most likely isn't financially stable because they are a kid, they are financially dependent on their parents, meeting somebody who is a grown adult who probably is financially stable to at least to a point of more than the 16-year-old, that's a power dynamic. It's exploitative, and it's just, in my personal opinion, morally wrong. And honestly, for me personally, this is the one thing of where I'm like, I don't even need to hear the other things because this is just pretty much enough for me. But as I said, we do need to go through absolutely everything because one, there could be more victims in this situation, but also there could be misinformation in this situation which actually does prevent real victims from being spoken about, such as the girl we just previously referenced who was in a relationship when they were a child with a grown man. I don't want that to be kind of put into a blurred line because I have seen a lot of people out there say there aren't any real facts in this situation, when the fact of the matter is, yes, there aren't facts for everything. There are certainly facts for some things, but I think that means we do need to do the due diligence of going through everything. And that is furthered when we move on to the 7th of September 2022, when Astekas posted another post about BoyInABand once again, but this time it was very, very different. In comparison to the previous posts, this blew up. Like, the previous posts, I believe, didn't actually get any traction whatsoever, and I think they were also being removed from a lot of subreddits, which, is a little bit suspicious alone, but, maybe it was a moderator just thinking it was spam or some bullshit. We're not going to get into deep, crazy theories here, but yes, a post was made, sorry, I can't speak the English language today, I am quite ill, but yes, a post was created, and this post was the beginning of the downfall. Dave from BoyInABand, over a decade of abuse underneath an almost perfect persona. Now, allegedly, what this post mainly is actually a letter. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. A letter was created and supposedly sent to the family and friends of Dave in order to kind of make them aware of what is going on, but also, I think, more of an allegation that his family and friends are enabling Dave's alleged abusive behavior. It says that they are writing this letter in hopes of stopping patterns of abuse and stating that the amount of victims in this situation is now allegedly in double digits. So what we're going to do is take a look at the facts in this situation, we're going to take a look at the contradictions in this situation, and also the weird little holes which kind of make no sense to me. But firstly, we do need to actually outline the key allegations in this letter, and as I said, once again, these are, at the moment, just allegations, especially a lot of them where they're really isn't much attached to them. And I do just have to also clarify, when I say I want like some form of evidence, I don't mean like a fucking, somebody gets their GoPro out and starts recording Dave doing some horrific behavior. That's obviously not a realistic thing, you know? You don't just have a fucking GoPro strapped to your head. You're not a chronically online YouTuber. What I'm saying, what I want here, is a name, a picture, something attached to these allegations, which just isn't an anonymous Reddit user. Now, I understand that it takes a lot of willpower for a victim to come out and speak about their story. That's completely understandable, but I can't just take that and say that we need to be trialed by Reddit in this situation, you know? I can't take a Reddit post and say these all are absolutely true, because there is no real co-signings on these things. Whilst I can add things up, and whilst there are already incriminating things out there, there are a lot of things mentioned in this post which just really, there is nothing to back. And again, I am not saying I need video evidence, I'm just saying that at least some form of name. This isn't a criminal court where a victim is going to be having their name protected. This is Reddit. Anybody could do this. I could literally make a message to myself right now pretending, I don't know, fucking PewDiePie is actually keeping me hostage unless I get you all to subscribe to his YouTube channel right now. It's something like that, you know? I don't know, Aiden from my podcast is actually... I don't know, I don't want to say anything too bad, but he's bullying me, you know? He's stealing my glizzies, something like that. I could make this all up and post it on Reddit anonymously, and I wouldn't expect people to believe that about Aiden or PewDiePie. So, again, I just need to preface that before we actually look at these allegations, but yeah, let's get into it. 1. Dave for years now has displayed abusive behavior with lying, manipulation, and emotional, financial, physical, and even sexual abuse of many young girls. 2. Dave dates young fan. Well, we already know, like, again, I said I wasn't going to interject, but we know that's true. That's one thing which is factually backed, and again, indefensible, and I'm just having to go through all the allegations, all the other reasons I've said in this video, but that's true. Dave ended up hitting Rachel, the girlfriend mentioned before, and even had Rachel sing a song where the lyrics were taking her without consent. 4. He has a pattern of dating young fans, pretty much love-bombing them into a relationship and then discarding them when they refuse to do what he wants. 5. He is a hebephile, which I believe means that he is attracted to teenage girls. Now, I can't outright, diagnose is the right word, but I can't outright be like, oh, he's 100% this thing, but it does add up with a grown man dating a teenager. That does absolutely line up. But again, let's continue. 6. He encourages them to lose weight, calling them lazy and disgusting, seemingly, in my opinion, I guess, to try and bully them into unhealthy conditions. 7. He coerced multiple young girls just into being polyamorous, advertising it as a superior way of living. 8. He uses depression as justification for treating his partners like shit, and he also has a serious problem of substance or medication abuse. And 9, as I said before, the amount of victims in this situation are allegedly now in double digits. So yeah, this is quite a lot. There is a lot of very serious and heavy allegations, and I'm only laughing because I am honestly incredibly uncomfortable right now. I'm in a position of where I'm thinking, I never expected this to ever happen, and I think it's because I have become a hypocrite and bought into somebody's public persona, because BoyInABand was worshipped as this amazing, wonderful, smart individual for so long, and all of this suggests that that's a complete, utter fucking facade, and all the other things which have been proven, which we've kind of gone through so far. But alas, it's still a surprise just to read on paper. But ultimately, I can completely understand why a lot of people wouldn't want to believe all of these things other than the thing that we went through previously that is factually available on the internet, because there isn't a name to kind of co-sign these things. Rachel is, I believe, the only named ex-partner in this situation. And again, it would be like, I mean, if Rachel ever did want to come out and speak about this, I understand it's a difficult and brave thing to do, but I don't think that really Rachel's name can 100% be used other than the speaking of her dating him when she was younger, because she hasn't co-signed this as far as I know. But also with this, as it says, there are 10 plus victims in this situation, and I'm not saying that they would all come out, but with the amount of possible victims, usually when a situation happens or where somebody gets accused of something, there is like an excess of wildfire of actual fake false people coming out, as I mentioned with James Charles previously, you'll always get people being like, on an anonymous Twitter account, being like, this person did this to me, this person did this to me, not providing any evidence whatsoever. But in this situation, that I don't believe has happened. There hasn't been any person saying they're part of this allegation. There hasn't been any actual face speaking up. There's not really been anything other than the things other people themselves, other YouTubers and content creators have added together. So I'm not denying these allegations, but I'm saying that how they are presented is very, very difficult to kind of consume because it's a letter. It's a letter to family and friends. And whilst this letter may be appropriate to send to family and friends that are aware of this situation, I think when the allegation is first being brought to the public's attention, there needs to be a bit more than a letter. I think it needed to be a Reddit post where everything was concisely laid out with all of the bits of the information from the spiderweb of allegations, put in like a timeline, kind of how like this video is, and then include the letter at the bottom being like, oh, we sent this to the family and friends of Dave. I think that would be a much better way to do it, but the problem is because it's been done in this way, now there's a bit of blurred lines. Now you've got people saying, you know, there's not enough facts in this situation, when the fact of the matter, there is a fact out there that he indeed did date somebody at an incredibly inappropriate young age. That's a fact. People, I think for the most part, will see that and not want to associate with that. But with everything else, it kind of makes the lines blurred. But again, with all that other stuff, there is still things which can actually add up to that. And there are also pieces of evidence of actual inappropriate actions between Dave and his own fan base, which is still currently public available. But again, the problem just is, it's all a complete fucking mess. And I understand the content creator or Reddit poster was just trying to clearly help people. It's just not really been the most helpful way of doing it. Even when you look at the screenshots attached, it's just mainly 50 plus screenshots of a group chat of apparently Dave's exes speaking to each other about the alleged abuse they endured. And I'm not denying that these screenshots are real, but ultimately I can't really expect people to take these as authentic evidence, because as much as we can say, you know, we should believe victims, in this situation there aren't victims being attached to this. These are just messages with no name, no face, no co-signing of absolutely anybody other than one anonymous Reddit account. That is the only co-signing of this. So I just don't know how people can really take those messages seriously, as disappointing and sad as that sounds. And I'm not trying to sound like a victim blamer here. I'm just trying to come at this with a neutral kind of understanding, because for all we know, Dave could actually come out of a video and actually be like, all of these things are complete and utter bollocks, and here is the proof to kind of prove that. So I don't want to come on here and be like, oh yeah, I completely believe these things which one person has put out there, which literally anybody could put out there about absolutely anybody. I could make a Reddit post where I put 50 anonymous messages about any of you guys. Would I expect you all to believe it? Hopefully not. And again, when you look at those 50 plus screenshots, there is actual evidence posted right at the bottom of Dave's relationship with Rachel, but it's right at the bottom. As I mentioned earlier, we're all ADHD fucking riddled freaks, you know? Like, we aren't going to all read everything. So when there is one real bit of evidence right at the bottom, I just think that's a little bit silly, because ultimately, not everyone's going to see it, and when you're posting all the other things without much factual proof, it's just going to cause people to forget the real evidence and kind of put the rhetoric out there of, hey, you know, there's really nothing in this situation, which honestly, I don't think is true, but even I was buying into that before I really looked into things. And whilst I do think that the main issue with these allegations is how the information has actually been presented to the internet, I think that we should actually go through these allegations and kind of break them down and see if there really are any links we can make with things that I and other content creators, like the content creators we mentioned previously, have found in this situation, starting with number one of alleging that, yes, Dave has been displaying abusive behavior for years now, and I guess this kind of is a overbranching allegation of everything mentioned in this document, so I don't really think we need to go further into that. So we'll move straight on to number two of Dave dates young fans. And as I said earlier, this is proven. Now, throughout this article, like was letter, it does mention that Dave dates multiple young fans, when in reality is now we only have evidence of one case of that. But the fact is if he's willing to do it once, I mean, he's probably going to be willing to do it again. That's all I can take. I mean, in all the other situations where I've seen somebody get exposed for one bad thing, it usually turns out they've done that bad thing multiple times. Again, bringing up James Charles, it happened multiple times. And especially when Dave's fans seem predominantly quite young and usually teenage girls, especially when he was in his heyday of like 5 years ago. But yes, that seems to be factually true. But again, there isn't any proof of other people. But I will say, I really wouldn't be surprised if that part is true about there being multiple other young fans, because he's already dated a young fan. Number 3 is the lyric about "take me without your consent." And yes, this does exist. This is a YouTube video which I think a lot of people have seen at this point. But there again are some issues, but I am just going to play the clip first.
Okay, feel free to post your track as a video response to this one. Now it's time to sit back and take a listen to the final finished 7-day dance pop song.
Take me without my consent. Take me without my consent.
Now, firstly, this is obviously a very fucking weird lyric to have. Like, regardless of the times, it's still going to be considered weird to say something like that in 2011, especially when it's known that your girlfriend at the time was a young teenager and you are a grown man in your 20s. Obviously, it's going to be a bit weird. Now, we naturally can apply that, yes, back then there was more, I guess, edgy humor. Edginess was widely more accepted back in the early 2010s, but still, it's a very fucking weird lyric. But then in the Reddit post, it does say that this is Rachel speaking, and I have done a plethora of research, and I just said plethora, so you know I'm being serious. No, I've done a lot of research, and I couldn't find any proof of this. Now, maybe it is. Maybe people who are fans of Dave or BoyInABand can, confirm this in my comment section, but I haven't really seen any evidence to back it, and I think it's also kind of suspicious because the girl in the song sounds to have an American Californian accent, but when you go and look at Rachel's old posts, it can show that she clearly was growing up in Wolverhampton, which is where Dave is basically from, so it's a little bit strange. Now, obviously, we can all do American accents. Oh my God, I'm sorry. We can all do, I'm sorry. We can all do American accents. We all can. But I don't know, there's not really any evidence to say that that is her, but that doesn't change the fact that this lyric is fucking weird, and it kind of does reflect that, yes, this guy did have some at least weird thoughts going on back in the time of 2011, in particular, round about the time of where he was dating somebody who is a teenager. And this is kind of, again, the whole issue of how all of this information is kind of presented. Like, if somebody posted this being like, this is what he said in 2011, and not necessarily, this was definitely this person, it would be, I think, more damning, because it would kind of show his attitudes and how he was a little bit odd. But when I say a little bit, he was very fucking odd back then alone. But yeah, it's not really being presented, and when people have asked for proof, the original poster has actually said that in the past there was actually somebody that called out Dave, an apparent victim, and this was in 2016, and apparently the girl that called out Dave was harassed, and Dave even doxed her. But once again, there is no evidence of this. And I am aware that some people are going to accuse me of victim blaming. Trust me, I'm not. The reason I'm saying this is because I don't want the possible mistruths to misconstrue with the actual truths of an actual teenager has dated an adult, which in my opinion is very fucking wrong. I don't want that to be forgotten because of all the other possible mistruths, or at least things which aren't factually backed. And saying that somebody was doxed or harassed without any form of evidence is it's just not going to help. But to be honest with you, even going back to the comment that we were referring to earlier about those lyrics being sung by Rachel, I actually don't think that's the most damning thing about this song. Instead, when you go to the comment section, you can actually see a comment made by Dave himself, where he says this is a pop song which he was trying to make lyrically authentic as well as musically authentic. Now, I don't really know what that means, and maybe I'm reaching here, but to be honest with you, to say you wanted it to be lyrically authentic whilst you're saying that, talking about taking taking without consent, that's a little bit odd. Now, maybe I'm reaching, but given the context of the situation we're discussing today, it's definitely very weird. But then we go back to the next allegation of Dave being a hebephile, and again, this does line up with previous things of Dave dating a teenager. I don't really know the outright definition of this, but based on my own, brain, I think they are similar things, right? The guy was an adult, he was dating a teenager who definitely wasn't fully developed at that age. I really don't think that's, possible. Or, it's just, I'm trying to not sound weird here. I think the two line up pretty much. I'm sorry if I sound like I'm fucking treading on glass. It's mainly because I am. Because when it comes to these things, people are fucking mental. And there are also the allegations of financial abuse, but also coercing people into being in a polyamorous relationship. And I've seen a lot of people saying, where's the evidence of sexual abuse, or where's even the story behind that allegation, because they do begin it and don't really go too much into it. I personally believe if you are coercing, especially a younger fan, into a polyamorous relationship, almost trying to put a lie, well, not a lie, but like if they're not polyamorous and you are doing your best to manipulate them into being polyamorous, that is quite abusive. If somebody says that they're not polyamorous, you should accept that. Just as if somebody says they are polyamorous, you should accept that. It's somebody's way of life, whether they are or they aren't, and that's none of your business, and you definitely shouldn't be going around saying that you should be this way because it's the superior way of living. In my opinion, if that was true, it would be sexual abuse, but again, with this allegation in particular and the financial allegation, there really isn't any evidence of it. And now as I keep going further into this, I'm thinking to myself, there is signs of bad things going on throughout this, and it makes you think, well, it really wouldn't surprise you if he did all these other things. And whilst I do believe that's true, I do think that just to make it so much more impactful, you should really provide the things that can be proven. As I keep saying throughout this, I'm not denying any of these things, but I'm also not accepting absolutely everything. I think this whole thing would be so much easier if somebody just came out and co-signed this, if somebody with like a name attached to them said something, but at this point of time, that hasn't happened. But that doesn't mean that previous haven't publicly spoken out about Dave, because whilst Rachel has been spoken about a lot in this situation, there was actually another partner of Dave's that spoke out about Dave and actually said some things which do line up with some of these allegations.
Logic to my reasons, when we talk you can't defeat them. Oh, I see why you're avoiding me and blaming it on depression. In the time you were here I've been hospitalized. Are you seriously saying you can stop to say hi? You're off recording music vids but can't send any messages?
Now my friends, I'd be a complete fucking hypocrite if I said to you right now, oh, well, it's not technically illegal, he's just guilty of being a dick. It's like, yeah, that's true, he is guilty of being a complete utter dick, but I made 2 videos about Gus Johnson not visiting his girlfriend in hospital while she was going through a traumatic event, and I think this is clearly another case of that, of Dave, for one, not being a good boyfriend, being a dick, but also the key thing to take away from this is the whole using depression to get away with things, get away with bad behavior, because this is something that does play in to these allegations. It says that Dave does use his depression to control girls by justifying why he treats them like garbage or even playing the victim card. And you don't really need to go further than adding 2 and 2 together to see that, yes, that lines up with what the diss track says of his previous partner. So again, we have the issue of we don't have any names attached to the allegation in the Reddit post, but we do have a previous YouTuber, previous partner of Dave, saying the things listed in the document. And again, it will lead into the question of, hey, is he going to do this with other people? Is he going to display abusive behavior with other people? Probably, because abusers don't just fucking stop after one abusive relationship. They'll go into another relationship and abuse the next person. It's the sad reality of things. I know people that have been in abusive relationships, and that person that they then broke up with went into another relationship and abused another person. It's fucking devastating, but it's something that's happened. And now, again, there isn't any textual evidence, but I am more inclined to actually believe this, because once again, there is a a face and name attached to this. There is a co-signing of this. And that makes me think that, yes, these things line up. There is a video from 2019 when this allegation wasn't even out there, lining up with what's said in a post 3 years later. So naturally, it probably, in my opinion, is true. So yes, in this situation, it is very much a case of, whilst the information hasn't really been publicly presented in necessarily a great way, not an awful way, but just, I don't think posting a letter is really going to completely convince everybody in the world of all these allegations. So what we've had to do is look at all of the things that have happened in the past, kind of go through all the cobwebs and identify the little pieces of information here and there, which we can kind of attribute to things. And yes, there is a lot of sussy-wussy little things going. I say so. That's not a good thing to say in a situation. That's a lot of bad things, basically. There's a lot of terrible things and a lot of indefensible things. And yeah, it's not looking good, bruv, as I keep saying. But alas, there was also a lot of other things out there, including BoyInABand himself actually kind of hitting the self-report of where he displays that he actually does definitely have at least an inappropriate connection to his audience. Because as I mentioned earlier, Dave does have quite a unique connection to his fans. It's a pretty wide-known thing that his fans are very celebratory of him, saying, Dave helped me so much, he helped me through this and that. But it is going to a point now of where I'm thinking, Again, I'm going to have to thank Jimmy Robbins because, for one, the video he did, very concise, genuinely a really good video. But he brought something up to my attention which hasn't really been mentioned by, I'm pretty sure, most people. This is something which I haven't seen referenced anywhere other than in Jimmy's video, and I think it does give clear evidence of inappropriate behavior. And again, whilst it's not illegal, you don't fucking need the law to dictate morals. As I said previously, the law in certain countries allows you to fuck your cousin. That doesn't mean it's right. That doesn't mean it's moral. It's wrong, but because the law's saying it's legal, you're gonna think that's right, that's a good thing to do? No, being a dick isn't a crime, but ultimately, we can still not like somebody for it. So basically, what Jimmy discovered was a community post. In fact, it was his last community post on a YouTube channel, his main YouTube channel, Dave BoyInABand, with 3 million subscribers, where he's basically asking his audience if he should overdose on medication in order to speed up the effects of his prescription doses. And now I can't really explain, I don't know why I can't put it into words, but this is just fucking weird. As a YouTuber, right, there are unwritten rules which we have of where there's no-goes, and I think this is one of those no-go areas. This is just fucking weird, inappropriate, honestly, parasocial relationships. This is something on those ends. This bloke is speaking to an audience of kids pretty much about whether he should overdose on medication. That's so fucking weird and inappropriate and displays behavior of, once again, I keep saying behavior, but more inappropriate behavior. It shows that this guy definitely does have at least a weird connection to his fan base and lines up with the other inappropriate connections to fans in the past, particularly Rachel. I know they're not on the same level, but it does just show that this guy is clearly, at least publicly, willing to be a little bit inappropriate with his audience. But what I think definitely makes this worse is, as I keep mentioning, he has a young, impressionable teen audience. So somebody in the audience may actually see that and think, oh, my favourite YouTuber, BoyInABand, who made that video about schools being bad, but actually I might do the fucking same because he's so smart and wonderful. And you may think, Fraser, they're not going to do that. I'm sorry, my friends, but that's just how little idiot kids thinks, because kids are fucking idiots. You are an influencer. You influence. And even putting out the possible idea of overdosing on prescription medication is fucking stupid. This guy has the public reception, as it says at the top of the Reddit post, of being publicly perfect and honestly quite a smart guy. But this post just reads to me that he's a fucking idiot. Why would you put this on the internet? Again, as I keep saying, I don't think anything illegal has been actually proven in this situation, but there's certainly some things which have been dug up to show, fuck me, how did this guy kind of get away with a lot of this stuff? It's not good. And even if he does, disprove everything, I think he does need to acknowledge that what he is posting here isn't appropriate and is wrong. So it's clear that he does have an inappropriate relationship with his fans. It's clear that he does have a public ex-partner speaking up against him, lining up with allegations of using depression to kind of paper over his bad behavior. But also, again, referencing Jimmy Robbins, he shows that in a Reddit post, there is an ex-friend of BoyInABand basically saying that Dave's not pretty much a very nice guy, and there is a lot of sus things about him that the public pretty much just don't know, that this guy pretty much uses people or takes advantage of people. And this post does actually seem to be co-signed by an actual real friend of Dave's. And usually I don't really delve into like, oh, this person unfollowed this person and this followed this person, but also a public friend, Jaden Animations, actually unfollowed BoyInABand. Now, you may think, Fraser, well, what are you turning into TMZ? No, I'm not. But when somebody gets unfollowed when they are accused of abuse, it's usually a little indication, especially when that person is a close friend. It says to me, maybe they knew more, because I think if they didn't know more and they unfollowed them and then it got proven to be false, they would look really bad. And maybe that just is going to be the case, but ultimately, I don't think that is the case here. I think an unfollowing has happened, probably for a reason, and mainly probably the reason that, despite everything and all my criticisms of how information has been displayed, he dated a 16-year-old who he met as a fan when they were 15 and he was in his 20s, which is indefensible. I think this has been a really strange situation because it's a weird one for me to say that I don't personally think I can agree with everything, but at the same time think that there is one thing out there which kind of overshadows all of the other things, but also maybe makes those other things believable. That's not a usual situation you get with these allegations, but ultimately that's what we have here. We have a severe amount of inappropriate actions, but also a bunch of allegations which don't have much evidence to back them, if any evidence or any names whatsoever. And I know people will say, well, don't you think that with all the things that you have kind of proven, that all the other things will most likely be proven? Because, you know, if he's willing to do all those other things, he's surely willing to do the other things. Well, yeah, I do agree. That definitely is a plausible thing, but that's not going to fucking hold up in a court of law, is it? Just being like, yeah, he did this thing and it might mean he did that other thing. I know logically we will think like that, but obviously I can't say that those things are true based on, oh yeah, it could be like that. That's just not how legally it's going to work, unfortunately. I'm going to conclude this situation by saying, for the 5th time today, I really hope it doesn't come off like I'm victim blaming. I am just bringing up things which I think are either suspicious, pieces of misinformation, or just weird holes in the story, because I think a lot of people have also took them and used that to blur the lines and make it people think, oh, there is no factual evidence in a situation, or at least anything in a situation, when there actually definitely is. I think that is something we both need to look into, the facts and the misinformation, at least until more comes out, at least until a name co-signs this, or even if Dave BoyInABand himself comes out and responds to it. But it doesn't seem likely because Dave BoyInABand hasn't posted on YouTube or Twitter in like 2 years. The only thing that he has been doing is posting on his Instagram, but even then, after these allegations of the last 2 months, it seems that the guy is MIA. And I understand with some responses, it can take a while to actually build a response, but at this point, it's 2 months, the public has condemned this guy as a horrific person. Again, I can't speak English. So it makes me think, why is he still remaining silent? Maybe he is building like this massive piece of, I don't know, media to present all the facts we've proven, well, not facts, but all the things or allegations as a lie. Maybe he is going to do that. But 2 months? That just seems like a very, very long time to do it. It is very suspicious, and I am kind of concerned that these things are actually true. Now, in my opinion, a lot of them probably are. Maybe not everything, but with everything we've gone through today, it just says to me, if he's willing to do some things, why would he not be willing to do the other things? As I said, that doesn't present in a court of law, but obviously this is just my opinion. This is just how I feel as somebody that regularly covers these situations. And again, I think we would be hypocritical if we didn't give it the same attitude that we gave the James Charles situation. I think that would be utterly ridiculous. I'm going to end this video by saying this is a very confusing situation, but ultimately the one at least conclusive opinion opinion I can take on everything is that Dave is certainly in the wrong in a lot of these things, to a point of where I don't really think there's much of a return. It kind of depends on what your moral compass is. With my moral compass, I don't think I can really fucking defend most of the actions which we've actually spoken and proven today. But alas, ultimately a lot of people will take the things which aren't proven and use that to blur the lines, to either bolster an agenda or to say, well, if they're lying about that, why would they not be lying about other things? But personally, I would love to know your opinion on the situation. It is a bit different to a lot of other allegations out there, and I don't really think it's going to be solidified until more information comes out from either Dave's side or the accuser's side, because at this point all we really do have is an anonymous Reddit account and also a bunch of posts that a lot of other influencers have kind of stitched together to link things, and really that's kind of difficult to come to some form of overall overarching definitive opinion on BoyInABand. But ultimately my opinion is he's not really a good bloke, or at least his public persona was a complete utter facade. Sorry, no, I had to interject here. I don't know why. I feel like I'm being really way too nice than I should be. I think he's a horrible person. Like, there's nothing I can really say more than that. Like, his mentality and how he acts with his fans and asking them if he should overdose on medication, that alone is awful. But the fact he dated a 50, there's so many bad things here. I don't know why I was being nice. I just thought I'd interject and say, don't be concerned. I think the guy is terrible. But that is the ending of this video. Thank you so much. We're going to go back to short videos in the next one, because I understand this might have been a long video, but I think something like this deserved a lot of attention and a lot of a bit of I can't speak English, a bit of a deep dive. I need to just take some classes after this video to actually speaking, but yeah, please drop a like on this video, because I understand that there will be some absolute nut jobs, because, you know, a guy tries to, I guess, in the middle present facts, and, you know, that's a crime. But either way, please like this video, please comment your opinion below, and please follow my social medias. But most importantly, go subscribe to my new podcast. It's in the description, and I promise you, it's not just like a regular fucking podcast of, I don't know, where we're speaking about the woke issues of 2022. We're not doing that. We are literally just spewing utter verbal garbage, and I think that's much better than 99% of podcasts. Buddy's podcast in the description. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out, and have a lovely day.